Hey, what's up? Benjamin here, and welcome to my channel. This is a new segment that I'm calling The Muse I See. And today, I'm going to be talking about how I built my own practice organ. So, currently, the organ that I use is a USB-MIDI Revision 3. Let's just call it that. That's what I'm calling it, because it is literally just 3 USB-MIDI keyboards. One of them's coupled to a pedal board. And here you can see a little bit of what I've done. 2 61-key USB-MIDI manuals, small powered USB hub, 32-key pedal board, coupled to a 49-key USB-MIDI keyboard. As you can see, this music desk here is suspended from the ceiling. I have a sustain pedal. There's me. And there's my bench. Wonderful stuff. But the keyboard wasn't always like this. It started out just as an idea, as a practice keyboard, as a practice pedal board, something that I could just use to work on my pedal technique while I'm at home. And I started with a 25-key pedal board. Here it is in all its glory. And in order to use that pedal board, I had to build a small mount. And here I slapped a few boards together, eventually glued them and screwed them, and made a comfortable little mount for this. It's like a base mount for this 25-key pedal board. Now, I knew I needed to have a desk of some sort, too. I didn't even have anything like this. I could have used a music stand, but really I thought I need something solid. I need a good, solid piece of wood desk. You know, like organs are often made out of wood, and they always feel very sturdy. So I thought I should do something like that. So I did some research and found some rough measurements that I liked. I enjoyed working or reading this, and I decided to try my hand at it as well. Now, I tried, just after handwriting some measurements and stuff, I tried going into Google SketchUp, which is not the easiest program to use, but as you can see, I made a little attempt here, and it is more or less about the average height of this woman here. Look at her talking on her phone. She's not even paying attention. But at any rate, this was a fun thing to work out, and this just helped me sort of realize some of my ideas. There's my hand sketch version of the same thing, and that is not as impressive, as you can see. But I took a number of measurements here of the different things that I needed to do. Here's some measurements of one of the 61-key keyboards. Again, all of my keyboards are M audio, so I wanted to try to be a little bit consistent with the touch and feel across keyboards, so I use the same brand. And there it has some measurements of the things. This helped me just develop the structure for the stand, for the console stand. As I was, working on it, I took measurements so that I would make the right height for the keyboard, so the keyboards would fit in there well, and that they also weren't too far away and too tall for me to be able to use. So I did some experimentation. And at the end of the first day, I thought, I'm going to take a little break. But then the next day, you can see I had finished up the mount a little bit better here, and I've placed felt at the bottom of it because as you would depress the pedals, it would knock up against the wood, and it would sort of create a lot of sound, and I wanted to try to make it not quite so loud. And here I was just sort of sketching my way through. I'd done some rough cuts of wood and had just put a few pieces here to just see what it was going to look like, see if the height was all right. I experimented with the height a little bit, ended up chopping off a little bit more, and then sort of finalized it here with this melamine board. And I had a crossbar in the middle to help support. And by the end of that second day, I had basically worked out the, as you can see, the 2 manual console desk, as well as a shelf down here that I was thinking I might use for the lower keyboard. And, well, you'll see what I eventually did. And now I had moved it up into my office, and Here it is, more or less installed there. It's a relatively small office, but you can see this was my first revision of this project. And up on the top there, you'll notice that's a 49 key, and then below that is a 61 key keyboard. This 49 key is what I eventually used to couple to the pedal board, and I used a number of other keys, but this lower 61 key has been stalwart. It's been part of my setup for the whole time. And here you can see a little bit of my toying around with the idea of coupling that USB MIDI keyboard directly to, back to that, directly to the pedals. And so what I did was I used string, and I cut lengths of string and basically wrapped them around these little end contacts as part of the pedals. And then when I push the pedal down, these go down, and they pull down on the keys, and the keys go down. That was the concept, and it tended to work pretty well. Notice I put some screws here in the side of this small shelf that helped me route the strings more over the top of the keys, or at least closer to that, so that I could get a little bit better mechanical advantage. See, as these are going down, they're sort of far away, so you don't end up getting the right amount of pull down by themselves. It helps to have these little pins, and I expanded on that idea later. One thing to notice is this keyboard is not glued onto the shelf. It's not really fixed permanently on here, nor is this shelf. It's just sort of sitting inside this other bookshelf here. So ultimately, this was not stable enough or sturdy enough. It moved around a lot, and as I would pull on these strings and pull the keys down, it often shifted the keyboard a little bit. So I needed to adjust that and make that a little bit more solid too. But here's a little video example of how I sewed through the keyboard. Here it goes. Taking my time.
And bingo.
Yeah. So that gives you a little bit of an idea about what I had done. Here, as I had progressed through this, you can see where I had actually wrapped these strings around these pedal contacts at the end, routed them, or at least this upper octave of the pedals, routed them over. These lower octaves actually had a fair amount of direct downward pull, so I didn't have to route this lower octave. They were more or less under the keys, but notice how just far displaced this upper manual is, or these upper octave of pedals is, compared to the keys of the octave of that manual. So they're just really far displaced. So it helped to have some routing. And here I had completely finished it. One thing to notice is look at how the keys are slightly depressed already. This was so that I could get it as close to the pluck point as I could. And so there was a little bit of play that I had to pull out of the keys in order to make it feel like as you would play the pedals, the keys would depress properly or at the right point. So it's sort of like adjusting that pluck point of the key and converting it to work as a pedal key. And that took a little bit of pressure here, but I sort of got the hang of it after a while. And my cat, which helped out greatly through this process, is here just hanging out, tired at the end of the day. And revision 1, here it was. This was my very first attempt at a practice keyboard. This was in my office, and I have an analog keyboard up on the top. This is a Korg CX3, and there's my USB MIDI keyboard below it. And so I had a small mixer down here, though this is a DA, and the organ was going into this M box too. And then the M box was also responsible for triggering the sounds from the USB inputs on this keyboard and on the lower pedal board keyboard. And there's a monitor up there. You can't really see it well, but that was the monitor that I used to mix and load samples on these USB MIDI keyboards. There's a small example. I'll let you just hear a little. So that's just an idea of what that upper one sounded like. And actually, that organ manual fried in an electrical storm. So that was the end of that. And this isn't even quite reversion 2. This is like revision 1A because I used another analog keyboard. It has MIDI outs, but I was using it as an analog keyboard first because it also has a few organ settings. So, but I eventually plugged in MIDI, and I was able to just trigger samples along with these other 2 MIDI keyboards. But that's regular MIDI, and these are both USB MIDI, so there was a little bit of configuring the interfaces to work. But that worked fairly well for a little while. But eventually, revision 2 was when I moved it down to the basement. And so here it is, installed in my basement, no longer up in my office. Here we have it, proof that the pedal board actually works. You get the idea. You see it as function, and the pedals push down and pull the strings, which then pull the keys down. And it worked fairly well. But it wasn't everything that I had hoped. And what you may notice here is I actually installed the shelf where the keyboard was. I flipped it upside down and installed the actual shelf where the keyboard had been sitting on top of as part of the console desk, and screwed it in. So this keyboard is actually part of the desk now too, and it doesn't move. It's very, very secure in there. The next video that I've got is the conversion, the actual conversion from my 32 key pedal board, or from my 24 key to my 32 key, or 25 key to 32 key. There we go. Those are the numbers. And here we go. That's the idea, and you can see, I'm going to back it up just a little bit because it's kind of neat. You get to see just briefly, there's a nice image of just the pedal board by itself. So this is the 32 key, and it's got this extra wooden frame built around it. It's a bit larger, And what you'll notice that I'm doing as I'm going through this is here I pull the whole thing apart. This is pulling the 25 key pedal board out. There I am drilling more holes in the keyboard because it's a 32 key, not a 25 key, so I needed to do that. And there I'd pulled the old one out and cleaned up the space, of course. And then I moved everything. Also, there were these larger cinder blocks here. Notice these were much taller. Well, my basement's not very tall, so I put some half height, and there you can see them now, half height cinder blocks, so that there wouldn't be any issue. Say if there's a flooding, we can keep the instrument off the floor. But in general, this is partially so that I just don't hit my head on the ceiling. And what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to figure out, well, this thing doesn't fit. What am I supposed to do now? It doesn't fit. The pedal board was much bigger than the console case. So as you can see there, I've just removed the console case. And what I ended up doing is I went outside and I cut the legs off the console case, and I built a slightly larger frame here. And there you can see I've brought the console case back in and sort of set it on top of this additional little frame mount. And it took a little bit of experimentation. As you can see, I'm still sort of experimenting with the distances, how far over it's supposed to be. Took a little break there at the end of that day. Ultimately, this took me about a week, this entire conversion process. So I wasn't doing as much practicing that week as I would have liked. I was just spent working on this, and there you can see I'm behind the thing, and that's when I was actually connecting up the strings to the back of the pedals. And I play it just a little bit at the end. I was wiring all the computers and electronics and stuff back up. And I played it just a little bit there at the end just to test it. You can't hear that, obviously.
Yeah, I think, throughout.
This is Dr. James Kosnik. He is a wonderful organ teacher, and he was kind enough to humor my attempt at trying to build my own organ. And he worked with me a great deal on sort of making it work the way I had hoped it would work. And part of that was finding the right posture. And as an excellent organ teacher, he helped in so many different ways discussing the different points of topic, and especially the pluck points and posture and distances. All of those things are very important. So I am grateful to him. Thank you, Dr. Kosnik.
Your life playing the organ, you will always have to come up with a little routine that gets you to that place where it's balance.
Yeah, agreed. So here's me demonstrating. And there you see, it works. And again, here's what the final version again looked like, just like from my beginning slide. I want you to notice that there are pins routed just sort of like those screws were, but for all 32 keys, so that I get the best mechanical advantage I can by pulling the string down directly behind the pedals. So where it gets the most downward force, that's what I'm trying to take advantage of by putting these routing pins. And these are just very, very small pin nails. They didn't have to be anything big, just enough to route those strings. One other thing to note as I was working on this is those strings will eventually sort of rub raw and break against those pins. So there's a little bit of maintenance necessary, that as there's some pressure and tension, friction being pulled across those pins, the string eventually wears out through that. So something to keep in mind as you're working on your own organ. Oh, you can see them a little bit better in this slide here. And you can see some of the pins, strings that had already broke. Here's one that's getting close. But this is when they break, you can just tie them again with another length of string, and it works remarkably well. And there's another angle. So in order to video my lessons, like you were seeing, where you could see my pedals and you could see my posture, I used a small video switcher here. Here's a 4-channel Roland. What is it? Model number 1HD V1HD. Great 4-channel HDMI mixer. Fabulous little device here. Allows me to overlay those images right over top of one another. Here's my audio interface, which gives me that really nice clean sound. This is an Audient Evo 4. As well as my MacBook Pro, which processes all of my samples for my keyboard. And then I have a small Dell laptop that actually is just in charge of recording both the video out from the video mixer and the audio out from the MacBook Pro. So this little Dell records all of the videos and all of the lesson material that I use, and it's really, really helpful to have a small recorder like that you can then reflect. You can watch yourself, and you can learn a lot by watching and listening to yourself play. Notice I have a sustain pedal in here. Most organs don't have a sustain pedal. They often have a volume control pedal in the middle, but I don't have one of those. But I did install a sustain because sometimes I use this as a keyboard substitute, and it'll be fun to play keyboard with your feet. Oh, it's so fun to do that. I want to say thank you so much for watching today. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this button, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video so that you will see when other videos like this are coming out. And on that note, if you are enjoying this video and this content, put something down in the comments that says, yes, we would like to see more stuff like this. And I would be happy to continue making videos like this. So thank you again for watching. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.